Hi, welcome to Future Technas. When it comes to video, Nikon often gets criticized. Some people even joke about it or make fun of the brand. And to be honest, some of it is pretty funny. But this kind of reaction must be coming from somewhere. It can't just be random. That's why today we're going to look into Nikon's reputation in the video world. I've spent nearly a year using the Nikon Z90 and I've shot a lot of video with it. And to be honest, I've been more than happy with the results. So that made me wonder, did I miss something? Is Nikon really that bad for video, or has the brand actually improved while people just didn't notice? To figure that out, I decided to dig deeper. I wanted to understand where this hate comes from. Is it justified? Or has Nikon quietly caught up, and people are still judging the brand based on old habits? After doing some research and using the Z90 daily, I think I can finally share an answer. I'll tell you what I found, and by the end of this video, you might see Nikon in a new light. First, it's important to say one thing. A brand is not a person. There's no need to defend it or attack it. It's just a brand. It's not personal. I don't have any brand loyalty. I use what works for me. And I don't only use Nikon either. So this video is not about bashing or praising one company. It's about understanding where the facts are. And what the reality looks like today. To understand why Nikon gets so much hate in the video world, we need to go back a little. Years ago, people didn't really use cameras for both video and photo. You had photo cameras and video cameras. They were separate. Making video on a DSLR was not common. That changed in 2008 with a camera that became iconic, the Canon 5D Mark II. It was the first full-frame DSLR to shoot high-quality Full HD video. At the time, it was a big deal. That camera changed the game. Even though it lacked features we now take for granted, like image stabilization and proper autofocus in video mode, it opened the door. People got excited. They started using DSLRs for video more and more. And that's when content creation as we know it started to take shape. With these cameras, people could shoot videos that looked cinematic, all without needing to buy expensive cinema gear. It was the start of a movement. And one brand was quick to follow that trend, Sony. In 2013, Sony made a bold move. At the time, most cameras were still DSLRs, Sony wasn't really known for photography back then. Canon and Nikon were dominating. But Sony decided to focus on something new, mirrorless cameras. These didn't use mirrors like DSLRs. Instead, light went straight to the sensor. That meant a different design, a different system. It wasn't very popular at the start, but Sony took the risk. Sony's first big success in this new format came with the Alpha series. In 2016, they launched the A7S II, a camera designed specifically for video. It offered log recording, excellent low-light performance, and a smaller file size. It quickly became a favorite for filmmakers. Sony had taken video seriously. And it paid off. Meanwhile, Nikon seemed to be slow to react. That's part of where the reputation started. Nikon did offer video in its DSLRs, like the D90 back in 2008, but people didn't see Nikon as a video brand. It was known for still photography. And it looked like the company didn't believe the video trend would last. So while Sony was making dedicated video tools, Nikon kept focusing on photos. That created a gap. Then in 2018, Nikon finally joined the mirrorless race. But it was 5 years after Sony. Their first full-frame mirrorless camera was the Nikon Z6. It wasn't bad, but it lacked many features that video creators needed. It didn't have log recording, the autofocus was not great for video, and lens choices were limited. There was also only one card slot, which worried both photographers and videographers. It just didn't stand out. That's when people started to say Nikon was always behind. Even when they tried to catch up, it felt like they were still a few steps behind Sony and Canon. And to be fair, at the time, that criticism wasn't wrong. Nikon's early mirrorless efforts didn't bring anything new to the table. They were decent but not enough to convince people to switch. But then something interesting happened. In 2019, Nikon released a filmmaker kit. It included the Z6 along with an external recorder, the Atomos Ninja V. With this setup, the Z6 could record 10-bit 4:2:2 video in log externally. That was a big deal. It meant Nikon cameras could now match or even beat some of the competition in video quality. But it also required extra gear. It wasn't as simple as recording internally. You had to rig it up. Still, it showed that Nikon was listening. They were trying to improve. And then in early 2020, Nikon pushed things further. They released a firmware update that let users record in Apple ProRes RAW using that same external recorder. At under $3,000, it was the cheapest way to shoot RAW video with a full-frame camera. That was impressive. Later, they added Blackmagic RAW support as well. Suddenly, Nikon was the only brand offering both ProRes RAW and BRAW on the same camera. That's not a small achievement. And yet, people didn't really notice. The reputation stuck. Nikon was still seen as behind, even though their features were leading in some areas. So why didn't things change? Why did people keep making fun of Nikon? Maybe it's because video isn't just about specs. It's also about how people perceive the brand. And Nikon has always been seen as a photo company. They didn't have a dedicated cinema line like Sony's FX series or Canon's Cinema EOS line. They weren't making ads focused on video features. They were sticking to their photography roots. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But in a world where Sony and Canon were shouting about video, Nikon's quiet progress didn't get much attention. Also, Nikon is a much smaller company compared to Sony or Canon. They don't have the same marketing power. So even when they did something good, it didn't make waves. Another issue was the Nikon ecosystem. While Sony quickly opened its lens mount to third-party brands, Nikon didn't. That made it harder for people to switch. You'd have to buy all new lenses, new batteries, new cards. It was expensive. So if someone was already invested in Sony, why switch to Nikon even if it offered RAW video? And that brings us to the present. Cameras like the Z6 III and Z8 have changed the game. They now offer internal RAW recording, better heat management, improved autofocus, and professional features without needing an external monitor. You can shoot 12-bit and RAW internally, up to 8K at 60 frames per second, without worrying about overheating. That's something even Canon struggled with on the EOS R5. But still, many people don't give Nikon credit. They're stuck in old views. They believe Nikon is only good for photos. Or they simply don't know what Nikon is doing today. That's where we need to stop and think. Are we judging based on facts or habits?